Who is Kyrie Irving? Let's try to get to the bottom of this with a profile piece that you found the other day. Mavs against Denver tonight, the number 1 seed in the West, who are favored by 6.
Yeah, this was a piece over at the, by the way, are you a fan of the term piece? Like an article, like calling it a piece? I've got a friend who he hates it. He's like, quit referring to it as a piece. Just call it an article.
It doesn't get me worked up.
So this is in New York Magazine, and the headline was, "What was Kyrie Irving thinking? He arrived in Brooklyn a bona fide weirdo. He left for Dallas on even stranger terms." And this was written by Simon Van Zylen Wood.
3 names?
Yeah, that sounds like an author that Kyrie Irving would recommend, to be honest. So it leads off. It's basically trying to track down the day. It talks about the days leading up to the controversy in October with the anti-Semitic link that he shared, and leading up to that, and then also trying to go back into his past in Cleveland a little bit to figure out where things changed. And so it was last fall on September 11th, and Kyrie was spending the day playing video games. He was spending hours on Twitch.
Which I thought he would be like above. I thought...
That seems like him, doesn't it? Though?
No, I think I would think he'd be above playing video games. I think
that's mindless.
Yeah, that's mindless. Like
apparently he does, like, so he's playing 2K a bunch, and apparently he just uses it as a place to sit there and talk with his fans, because his fans are the ones who go in there. And 9/11 is obviously a notable date for suspicious thinkers, as the article says, but
same with Sean O'Hara, NFL Network.
In 2001, it was a really scary day for Kyrie Irving, where his dad was a financier, former basketball player, and he was on an escalator beneath the World Trade Center, and he had to fight his way through a jam at the revolving doors to get out in time. And so Kyrie Irving is like 9 years old at school. His mother already died, as Kyrie has said, of a drug overdose. There's no official word on that, but Kyrie has always said that it was a drug overdose. And so at 9 years old, he was wondering if he even had parents, like if he was an orphan.
Wow.
And so early on...
fair or not, this always clicks in my mind. I'm like, okay, if something's wrong with someone, what's the parent situation? Like, if you watched the Kanye, did you ever watch the Kanye Netflix documentary?
No, I did not.
You're missing out. Peyton, did you ever watch it?
No, I didn't.
All right, well, screw you too.
I will watch it.
Kanye lost his mother, and it seemed like everything took a turn after that. So when I read this in this Kyrie article, I was like, okay, like mom was gone, right? His stepmother represents him as an agent.
Yeah, and he had talked about that in that Twitch chat. He was getting very reflective on the day and had told everybody, he said, look, your life is worth living. He told those struggling with loss to seek help, and he kept referring to them as his tribe and his family, and thanking them for providing him a safe space to speak, and called it their shared journey. So he's already a little bit of a different cat, but like, this speaks to your conversation about the media and his reservations with the media, that like he feels like, I got to take my own, like the own coverage of me into my own hands. And like, this is where I can dive in. I can talk to people who respect me and aren't looking for clickbait, aren't looking for a story. They just want to hear what I'm into and what I think about things. And in the stream, while he promised not to give up his day job, he talked about the possibility of a new career playing video games professionally, in which he could just commune in quietude with his digital followers. He had apparently mused before about buying a rural 200-acre plot where he could live and farm with friends and family, where what they needed would be obtainable from, quote, a wooden store. And a teammate
amazed
apparently
by the people who love farms. Ruggie Odor, give me horses in my contract. Sean Alexander at the Super Bowl. I don't want to mess with livestock.
But Kyrie, like, off the grid, on a farm, everything on its own.
Yeah.
And with that wooden store.
Got I have a friend whose father-in-law has like and he's so rich, the father-in-law, and he's got like the underground bunker for doomsday.
Oh yeah.
He's got millions of dollars. He's got gold down there. He's got, spaceship food, whatever's in the packets.
Damn.
All that stuff. And that to me, like, Kyrie would be prepping for that, I would think.
And so as he talked about this, and I guess one of his teammates had heard him like posit this before, and was telling him, like, are you familiar with Jonestown and like how that ended and what you sound like right now, dude? Like, this sounds weird what you're describing. But he ended out switching off the game. He was playing a little bit longer. And this is where I think you get a good idea of his mindset is he told the listeners on Twitch, he said, I'm built to lead a tribe. Yes, I'm going to be one of the greatest basketball players ever to do it. That's cemented. But I'm also going to be remembered as having a great community. I'm going to impact way more people when I'm done playing basketball than I will playing it. And that's in line, I think, with what we've seen from Kyrie Irving, is he does view himself as, I want to say, like, I wanted
bigger
to say,
than basketball.
Yeah, I wanted to say prophet. Prophet's not the right word, but I do think he views himself as a leader of people, like a spiritual beacon of sorts.
Yes.
And when you listen to some of the discussions that he has here, it's clear that that's where it comes from. His contract was set to expire. Apparently, where things really turned sideways, obviously, was the anti-Semitic thing. But he had come back. They were playing well. Everything had been smoothed over. They were one of the best teams in the NBA after Steve Nash was fired.
Yeah.
But because of everything that had happened, management was resisting the idea of the contract extension.
Which they should have been, which is the right move.
They absolutely should have, just like Dallas needs to really consider what they're doing before they sign up for this. But apparently that was just insulting to Kyrie Irving, and that's why he wanted out. It's not like he had just given up on Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He wanted to go somewhere else. It came down to, where's the respect? I thought we were past this, and you're holding stuff against me that is no longer relevant. And they've got the quote here from his first press conference as a Maverick that we talked about, where he said, I want to be where I'm celebrated, not just tolerated. And they said a source close to Irving parsed the breakup in similarly emo terms, comparing the Nets to a friend who might use you to get ahead in their career rather than a, quote, ride or die to whom, quote, you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets. So a ton of this for Kyrie Irving, it seems, is about loyalty.
Yeah, it's
be loyal to me.
And it's amazing. I've had nothing but positive impressions of Joe Tsai in Brooklyn. Looking back on it, I think he overpunished Kyrie for the Jewish story, the amount of hoops that they made him jump through. But otherwise, I'm like, man, Joe Tsai seems like, yeah, he got petty with not taking the Lakers deal. But James Harden coming out the other day and saying, see, I'm not crazy. Look what happened. It's management. Kyrie is trash management. Well, part of the reason Durant got dealt out of there is because they felt an obligation and still a loyalty to Kevin Durant because of the way he conducted himself as a professional. So this is Kyrie and Harden trying to trash the Nets and saying it's just a bad organization, when I've had the opposite feel. I've had the opposite viewpoint.
I know. I'll disagree with you on the front of just I think the hoops they made him jump through were necessary, because he had just been so dug in. I'm like, just say no. You wouldn't have had to jump through the hoops if you just said no early on when they said, "Are you anti-Semitic?" Just say no. Just like you know.
Yeah, he's one of these TO guys. He can never, like, we put in behind the scenes. It's never gonna happen. But we put in an interview request with the Mavs for Kyrie. Maybe, in a one-on-one situation, he'd be more likely to do it. What would you want to ask him? Like, what would be your top 3 questions? I would like to ask where he feels he's the most misunderstood.
Yeah.
I would like to ask, do you have, over the past 2 or 3 years, any major regret? Is there something you're really sorry for? Because I don't think he's really sorry for the anti-Semitic story. He proved that when he took down the tweet the other day. And my guess is, and I hate people like this, no regrets. Led me here today. I hate no regret people. They think that, it's some proud, stick my chest out. No, he just got me. Of course you should have a regret. Of course you have regrets. But I think Kyrie would answer 0, none. He's too proud. He's too stubborn.
I'd like to ask him, like, obviously things ended poorly in Brooklyn. Things ended poorly in Boston. You've been here for, let's say we get him next week or something. You've been here 2 weeks. How is this first 2 weeks different from the first 2 weeks in Brooklyn and Boston where you thought it was going to go great? Like, is there something tangibly different or something that you can point to and say, this is a different culture, this is a different way that it operates than I'm used to?
I'd also like to know, like, where is your basketball legacy on the hierarchy of importance? Like, you want to rack up rings? Like, is it truly, like, that important? Or is it about spreading knowledge and, enlightening people?
It doesn't seem to, just the fact that he said my impact will be greater when I'm off the basketball court. That seems to be what's important to him, I'm not saying it has to be like, Kyrie this has to be his whole world. No,
right.
It doesn't. This has to be Kyrie's entire flat earth. Like, this is the game of basketball. But I do think that you want that if you're going to make that investment, though, is you want somebody who's bought into that. But
yeah,
they talk about in early 2017 is when it really started to turn, because
this
that's
is the profile where
it's from New York Magazine
on Kyrie Irving.
Yes, and this came out on Monday. Well, I'll tweet a link to it. You guys can see it on my Twitter. But in early 2017, when Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson started the Road Trippin' podcast, which became wildly successful, it's a podcast they would record on the team plane when they were flying, and Kyrie regularly jumped in over there, and it, as the New York Magazine describes, provided a wider world with an unfiltered window into his free associative mind. He riffed on the possibility of a faked moon landing, noted the JFK murder took place just days before he tried to, quote, end the bank cartel, recommended a book by Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, who would gain notoriety as an alleged cult leader via the Netflix documentary Wild Wild Country, and most famously, he posited that the earth might be flat. As one NBA agent put it, did you ever grow up with a guy in high school who smoked a ton of weed, who is constantly thinking about S all the time? That's Kyrie.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like whenever Kyrie or like Kanye speaks, yes, my first alarm that goes off, I'm like, they're crazy, they're cuckoo. But
he's not dumb.
I do. That's where I'm going. I admit to like a little bit of insecurity about like my own intelligence, because on one hand, I say these guys belong in the loony bin. On the other hand, I'm like, they are definitely more well-read. They know more. They have more knowledge than I do. Like, it's clear. Now, whether they're believing in the right or wrong thing is different, but I feel like Kanye and Kyrie do take the time to, like, learn about a bunch of different stuff. And I'm like, is the language that they're speaking in just a different psycho language, or are they just so intelligent that they're speaking in sentences and words that I cannot comprehend? I have that self-doubt when I listen to Kyrie Irving and Kanye talk. I'm like, are they just like on another level above us in terms of their thought process and their, you know what I mean?
I think Kyrie's very smart, and I think that's why some of the things that he said, like some of the stuff he was pushing with the anti-Semitism stuff, I think that's why it was a problem. Yeah. Is because you are smart and you are a good communicator, and it's dangerous to communicate these ideas. And so I think that was the crux of that. But in 2017, when he's doing that podcast, he apparently has a very tight circle. And this tight circle of guys who are a little bit offbeat is where he really started to develop some of this stuff, and where he had started thinking about different things with the moon landing and everything like that. And when the flat earth thing came up, Kyrie was saying, that this is something that we have to ask, and are we sure that it's constitutionally round? And that teammates were starting to think, okay, he really means this. He's not playing around. And so we're running out of time here, but really quickly, he did say that one of the things they talked about was winning in Cleveland opened up a void. And he said years later, it was like climbing up one of the tallest mountains in the world, winning a championship, but then you feel empty after that. He had gotten really frustrated with the Cavaliers and wanted his own team, wanted to lead things his ways, which we talked about him. He leads a tribe. So after that, he wanted out of Cleveland. We've seen how things have fallen apart since then. And the final line here that I think is really good is, if Irving is a once-in-a-generation talent on the court, he's also deeply skeptical, or he's deeply of his generation off it, fed by algorithms, drawn to conspiracy, distrustful of a machine, even as it makes him rich, more alienated than ever.
So there it is, the Kyrie profile piece, as the Mavs look to get their first win with Kyrie and Luka together tonight against the #1 seed in the West. Cannot wait for that.